Okay, everybody, strap yourselves in for another Lightning Strikes Twice. I am Casey Rochford, and this is my esteemed colleague, Sir Eric Rosenblatt. Mr. Sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
Mr. Guitar.
Oh, yeah. So we have 5 minutes apiece. We have a topic apiece that we bring up, and the other person doesn't know, and we got 5 minutes. And yeah, so I guess I'm first up here. So let's see. I guess mine is kind of a mostly based around religion, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but probably not in this particular context, I suppose. So, what do you think about prayer in schools?
Oh, um, I think, okay, so like in general or like
E-
school operated sort of
like
prayer
school sanctioned stuff.
sanction? Yeah.
Either or. I mean, just yeah, in general, or whether it's school
So,
sanctioned or whatever.
um, yeah, I'm not at all in favor of moving away from secular education. I think that's important, but also uh, part of being a secular education does always allow the freedom for each individual to express themselves and believe whatever they want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, like, if a Muslim student wants to, get down on the carpet and face east in the middle of a math test, like that should be okay. But
Well, yeah, yeah,
to expect the whole class to do it, that would be totally wrong
exactly, yeah, and I totally
in
agree.
public school.
Yeah, and I think I definitely don't think schools should like basically, like you said, make everybody kind of participate or fully accommodate like schools saying like, oh, we're going to put aside an area for prayer or whatever, or maybe they could. It's just in general prayer area is fine. That's okay, but not like a particular religion. That's where I kind of take issue with. But it's like, yeah, I don't have a problem with people praying in school. Like, you know, it's part of humans. Like we have spiritual and religious views, and like you said, we should be able to express them, and that's perfectly fine. Like a
Yeah.
gathering of Christian students praying at lunch or something, like, yeah, whatever, knock yourselves out.
So, in a somewhat related topic,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think of this National Day of Prayer that's been going on for some years now?
I'm not really familiar with it. Is it like specific to a particular religion, or is it just sort of like all religions?
Well, I don't think it is specific, but does that even matter? Like, right? Like,
Well, I mean, I think as long as it's generic, I think that's probably okay because a lot of people the world over, their religions involve prayer, and that's a big part of humanity. Um, and I think just if it's a generic prayer day, like, oh, this is the day where everybody recognizes that, like, or I don't know, maybe everybody prays together or something. I don't know. It's probably fine, as long as it's not like one specific religion or something like that. Then that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like that kind of borders on, um, you know, uh, I don't know, government actions surrounding religion.
Yeah,
It's not necessarily like a law, but to have like a national day of something implies that there might be some kind of legislation backing that. And
yeah. Well,
eh,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a kind of a muddy sort of like a little bit gray, but I guess it's like I don't necessarily see a lot of these national days as being like government sanctioned. It's kind of just like some
true.
committee decides like, oh, we're gonna National Hot Dog Day or something. Like it's not like there was some kind of Congress got together and decided that.
I'm still petitioning the government for a national talk like Eeyore Day. Probably
Oh,
not
forget.
going to happen.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah. But like getting back to the schools thing, like well, I guess we kind of covered it. It's like, I, what about that? Here's one. How about coaches that have their team pray before a game?
Uh, yeah, I mean, as long as it's not obligatory, it's technically fine, I guess. But there is also like it's kind of rude, um,
Yeah.
because like if you're not into the prayer thing, it's super awkward. Um, a little bit like yeah, interrupting the flow of whatever, wherever it happens to be dropped in. It's kind of like if you're sitting around the table and you're about to eat, and then everyone's all of a sudden like, and you're like, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
like it's
That
like,
is, and
hey,
then you're
that's
kind
kind of
of feeling like you're obligated to participate. Oh, well, that's time.
ah,
That's a good one though.
yeah.
That I like that one. That's good. Oh man.
All right,
So
so
it's on to you now.
it is on to me. Uh, Another little bit of philosophy, I guess. Well, I suppose that last one was more political, but anyway, well, this one could be political too. So,
That's similar to mine. It's kind of like it's all over the place.
yeah. So, if the law fails in its duty, do you think it's moral to take the law into your own hands?
Oh boy. I mean, maybe it really depends on the situation because not all law is just
Right.
or fair or correct. I mean, you could say like in the Soviet Union, right? Like, oh, better follow all these laws, even though a lot of that stuff was kind of bad. Or North
Mm-hmm.
Korea, for instance, or something like, oh yeah, you always got to follow these rules. No, it's not. It's not. Laws are not moral necessarily, and so, and I suppose there are situations like, for instance, uh, I don't know, you see somebody getting beaten up or something like that. And I mean, the cops are 10 minutes away or something. Do you just stand idly by calling the cops or do you intervene? Right.
I think that's the moral injection in the whole thing is like, uh, do we lean a little bit too heavily on enforcement of laws, dispensal of retribution and that recompense and all that? Like, is it like if somebody steals something from you,
Hmm.
should you be allowed to go steal it back like OJ Simpson did?
Maybe. Well, because
Yeah,
like
I didn't think that was that bad. Of all the things he's probably done, um,
yeah,
like
well,
that
in
kind of
fact,
ranks low.
it does because honestly, like the cops don't always get your stuff back. Sometimes they just don't even give a shit,
They pretty
you
much
know?
never get your
I
stuff back.
know. So it's like, well, what do you do then? And so why not? Why not? I mean, it was like your car or something, right? It's like, oh, that's my car or my bicycle. I've seen that where somebody steals a bicycle and somebody goes and steals it back because obviously the police are too busy to bother with a bicycle, but it
Yeah,
may be your means of getting to work, right?
and I
Like,
mean, if you've done the legwork and you know who stole your stuff, for instance,
hmm,
and you've been the detective and you can show how you've reached this conclusion, I
hmm,
think that's perfect justification. I mean, you've just done everything above and beyond what the police would ever do anyway.
yeah, hmm,
So I think it's justified and, like re- returning yourself your things,
sure,
returning to
or
yourself
maybe
your own things.
even apprehending somebody who's done wrong. I mean, there's like
Hmm.
bounty hunters that do that, and they're not police.
I've been wanting for a while to do an episode on citizens arrest.
Hmm.
Like that whole concept is, I think,
This totally could be
underappreciated.
this totally could be an episode, honestly. Like there's so
Yeah.
many things packed into this concept here.
Mm-hmm.
I think in general, because I don't think that the police necessarily always enforce just laws, and they don't always enforce things that maybe people do want, like getting your bike back or something, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Or like they involve themselves in places we don't want them in, and then kind of don't get involved when we do want them.
Right.
So it's like, okay, well, maybe, as a society, I think we can agree that there are certain situations where, yeah, you're in the right. And I mean, really, you could go through, and like you said, if you've done the legwork and have evidence and stuff, it's like if you can logically justify your actions, then I think you are correct. If there's
Yeah.
if you have to like stretch to reach the conclusion, then you're probably not right.
I mean, yeah, like, yeah, I suppose one gray area could be like, is it morally correct to take a baseball bat to those cameras that, catch you speeding?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be because I mean, it's yeah, that's or but like for instance, getting revenge on somebody too. That one's like a big topic because it's like, well, an eye for an eye, right? Is that the right way to solve a problem? Not
Hmm.
always.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
it's more of
sometimes,
it's more of a comforting thing, I think. Like
yeah.
for someone to be like, okay, you've wronged me, now I've wronged you. Like,
Now we're
uh,
even.
yeah, like
As
now
I
you
think
get to
as
feel as shitty as I do.
exactly, I think as long as the response is equivalent to the initial action, you're probably right to justified in doing that.
Like
Or
force.
maybe even less than like you just kind of somebody does something really bad and you just like slap them in the face. Like I think that like, okay, well that's not whatever you did is way worse than this face slap, but like that's
Ah,
time. those
damn.
are both really good. Like
Oh yeah,
those are yet again two things that could spawn whole episodes and probably
absolutely.
will.
Well, be sure to check out the full episode that is surely to come from one of these or both of these topics. And we'll see you next week.
All right. See you later.